Okay, so buckle up, because this deep dive, this one takes us into some seriously mind-bending territory.
It really does.
We're talking UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, but
Not your typical...
not just your run-of-the-mill lights in the sky.
Yeah.
We're going deeper
Yes.
to the realm of government secrecy, cutting-edge physics, and maybe even a touch of philosophy.
Little philosophy.
All thanks to this interview with Matthew Pines that you shared with me.
Right. And Pines is not your average UAP enthusiast.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy with a background in physics, philosophy, A&D national security.
Yeah.
It's kind of the triple threat there.
Yeah, I did a double take when I saw his credentials.
Right.
This isn't someone speculating from their basement.
No.
Pines has been in the rooms where decisions are made.
Absolutely.
Where information is classified and compartmentalized.
Yeah, and that's what makes his perspective so fascinating, because he argues that all the secrecy surrounding UAPs, it's not necessarily about little green men.
Right.
It's about something much more practical and honestly more unsettling national security.
So explain that a little more, because on the surface, it seems a bit,
Cloak and dagger.
cloak and dagger, yeah.
Imagine you're the government and you discover something completely unknown.
Okay.
Your first instinct, protect your own interests, right?
Right.
So that means understanding the technology before anyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes keeping it under wraps, even from potential adversaries.
Makes sense, especially if we're talking about tech that could redefine warfare or even
Oh, absolutely.
energy production.
Energy production, yeah.
I mean, this is big stuff.
And Pines draws this really interesting parallel with the Department of Energy.
Okay.
He talks about how even basic physics research can be born classified.
Born classified.
Meaning some information is considered secret from the get-go just because of its potential implications.
So it's not about hiding alien autopsies, it's about hiding physics equations.
In a way.
Yeah.
Now add in the government's love of compartmentalization,
Oh,
the bureaucracy,
layers upon layers.
the potential for information silos. It's easy to see how UAP-related programs could be buried under layers of secrecy.
It's like that game of telephone.
Right.
But instead of a silly phrase getting mixed up,
Yes.
it's potentially world-altering information
Exactly.
getting lost in the system.
And that's why Pines suggests that even high-ranking officials might not have the full picture when it comes to UAPs. It's not that they're deliberately hiding something.
Right.
It's that the system itself makes it incredibly difficult to assemble a complete picture.
Okay, so if we take Pines at his word, the government IS taking UAPs seriously, but it's less about ET phoning home and more about...
Well, remember that phrase Pines uses. Foreign technology surprise.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So the U.S. is worried that another country, like China, might get their hands on some advanced tech, maybe even something recovered, and gain a significant advantage.
Exactly. And we're not talking about a new type of missile here. We're talking about potentially paradigm-shifting technology.
The kind of stuff that could rewrite the rules of the game, and not in a good way.
No.
Like if someone figured out anti-gravity or teleportation.
Right. And that fear, that very real geopolitical fear, is what Pines believes is driving a lot of the recent interest from U.S. senators.
Okay.
They're not just dismissing this as a fringe theory anymore.
Well, after everything that's come out in the past few years, they'd be crazy to.
Right.
And speaking of things coming out, remember those disruptions at Langley Air Force Base a few months back?
Yeah.
Planes grounded airspace, locked down.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and the official explanations were less than convincing.
Right.
They relocated an entire fighter squadron.
This is Langley we're talking about.
This is not...
Not some small town airfield.
No, this is...
They protect the national capital region.
Exactly.
Okay, so remind me, what was Pines doing at Langley?
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
He was doing counter-drone assessments in that region years ago, back in 2016, 2017.
So even back then, the government was worried about small UAS threats. Unmanned aerial systems, right?
Right.
Basically drones.
Drones, yeah.
But what happened at Langley, that wasn't some off-the-shelf drone, was it?
Whatever shut down Langley, it wasn't easily explained. And that leads us to the heart of the matter.
It makes you wonder, what could be so advanced that it could shut down an entire modern fighter squadron?
Right.
And not just any squadron. We're talking about the guys protecting Washington, D.C.
Right. It's not like they're easily spooked over there.
No.
And this circles back to Pine's point about foreign technology surprise.
Okay.
You know,
So let's say hypothetically that China or someone did recover something unusual
Right.
and they've managed to figure out some next level tech.
Yeah.
Is it so crazy to think they might be testing the waters, seeing how we react?
It's definitely a chilling thought.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. What if whatever we're dealing with isn't just technologically superior, but operates on principles we're only beginning to understand?
Okay, now we're getting into some real X-Files territory.
Right.
Time to break out the tinfoil hats.
Yeah.
But seriously, this is where it feels like we need to stretch our understanding of well, everything.
Exactly. And Pines doesn't shy away from this. He even says that to wrap our heads around what he calls Category 4, I'm quoting here, truly non-human tech, we need a new understanding of physics and consciousness itself.
Hold on, Category 4, you're going to need to back up a bit here.
Right, sorry. Pines has this system for categorizing UAPs.
Okay.
Category 4 is the truly mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
The kind that suggests technology so advanced it might as well be magic, at least with our current understanding of physics.
Okay, so to even consider Category 4, we need to upgrade our understanding of how the universe works.
Now think of it this way. Our current understanding of physics is like looking at a map of the world.
Okay.
Well, what we need is a globe.
Okay.
It's a more complete picture. And this is where things get really wild.
Yeah.
Because Pine says we can't just dismiss the woo-woo stuff outright. He's got this incredibly rigorous scientific mind. But Choti, he also entertains the idea that our current model might be incomplete.
So we're talking about things like quantum mechanics. Didn't they cover that in an episode of Cosmos once?
They did, but it's even weirder than they showed.
Okay.
Most people think of quantum mechanics as this obscure thing about tiny particles. But it's really about the fundamental nature of reality itself.
Go on, you've got my attention.
Think about concepts like the observer effect.
Okay.
This suggests that the act of observing something can actually influence what that thing is.
Wow.
Or wave function collapse, where the possibilities of a particle's state collapse into a single reality upon measurement.
So you're saying that reality might not be predetermined, that our consciousness, our awareness might actually play a role in shaping it.
That's one way to interpret it. And if that's true, then things like telepathy, remote viewing, even psychokinesis.
Pull up telepathy, like Professor X from X-Men.
Stay with me here. I know it sounds out there. But if consciousness itself can interact with reality at a fundamental level, then the possibilities are literally endless.
Okay, endless possibilities are generally a good thing, right? Unless we're talking about that movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, because that got a little messy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's a question we haven't even begun to answer
Yeah.
because we're still so stuck in our materialistic Newtonian worldview. But Pines points out that even Einstein's theories, which are the cornerstone of modern physics.
And those are pretty mind-bending themselves, let's be honest. Remember learning about relativity in school? Time slows down as you approach the speed of light. My brain basically melted.
Exactly. But even Einstein's theories, as wild as they are, allow for things like wormholes, shortcuts through space-time.
So faster than light travel isn't totally off the table.
Potentially not. And suddenly, interstellar travel doesn't seem so far-fetched. And then maybe visitors from other star systems, advanced civilizations with technology we can't even comprehend.
Okay, my head is officially spinning now. Wormholes, consciousness warping reality. This is a lot to process. But we're not done, are we? Because there's one more thing Pines talks about that's really out there.
You mean remote viewing?
Don't tell me. The CIA actually used psychics to spy on people. Okay, remote viewing CIA psychics. Tell me more, because this sounds like a movie plot.
It sounds crazy, but it's true. The government actually used remote viewers operationally for decades. There was even a whole program at Stanford Research Institute where they were using it to try and gather intel on the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
So what? They had people staring at goats trying to predict Soviet missile launches.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. The idea was that these remote viewers could somehow tap into this non-local awareness, kind of like we were talking about with quantum mechanics, and see things happening in other places, even other times.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. Part of me wants to be skeptical. But then again, we've been talking about quantum mechanics and wormholes. Maybe tapping into some hidden consciousness dimension isn't that far-fetched.
And that's Pines' point. He's not saying any of this is easy to explain or prove. But he's suggesting that maybe, just maybe, there's a connection between these seemingly disparate phenomena. If consciousness isn't just confined to our brains, if it's something more fundamental to the universe itself, like some physicists believe, well, then maybe remote viewing isn't so crazy after all.
That's a pretty big if, though, isn't it?
It is.
Hmm.
But think about it this way. If someone had told you 100 years ago that we'd be having this conversation right now, wirelessly transmitting our voices across vast distances.
Using a network of satellites orbiting the Earth, all thanks to something called the internet.
Right. They probably would have called you crazy too. The point is, our understanding of what's possible has a way of evolving as our knowledge expands.
So where does this all leave us? What are we supposed to make of all this? Because we've covered a lot of ground here. Government secrecy, advanced technology, quantum physics, even psychic spies. It's a lot to process.
I think Pines would say that's the point. He's not giving us definitive answers. He's giving us a new way of looking at the UAP question. He's suggesting that it's not just about blurry lights in the sky. It's about fundamentally challenging our assumptions about reality technology and even what it means to be human.
He even touched on this idea of panpsychism, right? Where consciousness isn't just a human thing, it's a property of the universe itself. So, like, my coffee mug is conscious.
Well, maybe not your coffee most specifically,
Right.
but the idea is that consciousness could be a fundamental aspect of reality. In the same way that gravity or electromagnetism are, it's a mind-blowing concept and one that we're just beginning to explore.
So are we all just part of some giant universal mind? And if so, does our existence even have any meaning in that context?
Those are some seriously big questions, and I don't think anyone has the answers yet. But I think that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. It's like we're standing on the edge of a whole new understanding of ourselves and the universe.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Like, what happens next? What happens when or if we encounter a truly Category 4 phenomenon?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think Pines would say that's up to us to decide. It's about how we choose to respond to this information, how we choose to engage with the unknown.
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. I'm going to need a minute, maybe a week, to wrap my head around it all. Thanks for breaking it all down with me.
Anytime. This is the kind of conversation that never gets old.
And that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of UAPs, government secrecy, and the mind-bending possibilities of consciousness. It's a lot to absorb, but one thing's for sure, the universe just got a whole lot more interesting. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to challenge your assumptions and leave you with more questions than answers. Until then, keep looking up.